Yeah, I'm happy to say.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to welcome up Samuel Herbert from Troop 888 to lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, Samuel. Thank you.
Good job, Sam.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Ori?
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Payne?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have Mark Medler, our Director of Finance, Corey Wright, Assistant City Manager, Misty Clark, Clerk of Council, Dave Kennedy, City Manager, Joe Braun, City Solicitor, Chief Ott Huber, Fire Chief, and our Acting Police Chief, Sue Madsen. Also with us are former council members Todd Osborne and Pat Mays. And there we have EXO, Executive Officer Bruce Hawk, and Lieutenant Amy Campbell. So thank you all for being here. All right, so first we have our Tigers Inc. Back Our Businesses Week representatives. You may take the podium.
Hello, my name's Brady Steiner. I'm a senior at Loveland High School.
And I'm Addie Freeve. I'm a junior at Loveland High School. We are a part of Tigers Inc., which is made up of 25 business-oriented members here at Loveland High School. Our motto is we learn from experience. By experience, we act as a catalyst within our community to help the local businesses here. So we are super excited to announce that Back Our Business launch starts today, and it will be for the week of the 27th through the 5th. And for those of you who may not know, Back Our Business is where we go and support all 40 of the businesses right here in downtown Loveland. We promote them throughout the next 2 weeks, letting them come shop, eat, and drink. And something super exciting is we have Impact Day, which will be Thursday, the 3rd. And that's when we'll have people from specifically the high school, such as our teams, our faculty, our teachers. Everyone's coming out and supporting that one day to bring in revenue and show support to all those businesses. And Brady will say a little bit more.
I'm going to correct you real quick, Addie. Impact Night's actually going to be Thursday, March 2nd. So Tigers Inc. is partnering with the Loveland Legacy Foundation to continuing this success we've had in the past 2 years to make this an annual cause. Back Our Business in 2023, as Addie said, will be taking place February 27th to March 5th with Impact Night March 2nd. As in the past, many of our local business partners with local nonprofits for the organization of this week. Business choose to either donate 5, 10, 15, or 20 of such sales to nonprofits of their choice. The goal of Back Our Business Week is to give our businesses and local nonprofits a benefit that uphold our community by promoting and driving traffic while simultaneously building awareness to our wonderful aspects of our community. At the time, we have 40 plus businesses last year, and we look forward to doing the same this year. Partnering and Back Our Business with many of them will benefit our community greatly. We were wondering if you guys had any questions for us.
Any questions? Mr. Hart.
This has been a yearly event, right? How many of these have we had at this point?
Correct. We've been going since 2020, so this will be our third.
Third, yeah. It's been a pretty successful event for the community, hasn't it?
Yeah, we did really well last year, especially the nonprofits really benefit from it, getting the percent of sales.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you guys' work.
Any other questions? Thank you both for being here and explaining all this, and we'll see you at some point.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys having us out. Thank you.
All right, next, we're always happy to welcome Major Aerosmith, coolest name ever, from the Warren County Sheriff's Drug Task Force.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for a few minutes on your agenda tonight. I appreciate it as always. I'm on my annual tour of running around and visiting all the councils and trustees around our county and those who partner with us throughout the year. So I appreciate a few minutes. I've distributed our annual report as I do every year. Hopefully you have a few minutes that you can flip through that again. The Warren County Drug Task Force remains a multi-jurisdictional drug task force made up of federal, state, and local law enforcement. So Our foundation and who we are has not changed. We operate in all of Warren County and the city of Wilmington, as you know, over in Clinton County. So there's a pretty direct nexus for the city of Wilmington as you look at the northern part of Warren County and State Route 73 that kind of connects us over there. So they've been partners with us for a long time. We continue to target mid to upper level drug trafficking offenses. The multi-jurisdictional drug task force concept is still the best way, especially nowadays, to target drug traffickers and those that are committing those crimes within our communities. So our staffing for last year, we had 20 personnel from 12 different law enforcement agencies, and that's detectives. We have a team of uniform troopers from the Highway Patrol. We also have a small support staff. So as the task force commander, I continue to report to what's called the policy board, which is made up of representatives of 16 different agencies. Your new police chief is on our policy board, so he's been coming to our meetings, getting to know him, looking forward to working with him. But our policy board meets monthly. As the task force commander, I have to brief our board on investigations and activities that we've been involved in over the last 30 days. So they provide ongoing direction and oversight for me and for our unit. Really is a great way to operate. Activity last year, we had 437 new cases, 134 felony arrests, 86 misdemeanor arrests out of our unit. We see 79 firearms, executed 132 search warrants. So most of our investigations are longer term investigations. It's rare for us to have a case that resolves itself in just one day, but staying plenty busy, unfortunately. Drug trends for us remain the same as the past few years, unfortunately. Two greatest threats continue to be methamphetamine and fentanyl. We continue to experience a high number of drug traffickers that are in and out of our county in the areas we service from north and south of us, Dayton and Cincinnati. That's the reality of being the county that's sandwiched between two major cities, and we continue to deal with higher and higher numbers of drug traffickers that are just continuing to prey on our addicted population. So as our population grows in Warren County, so too does the number of folks that fight and deal with addiction. And as long as you have greed and addiction, unfortunately, we're going to deal with drug traffickers and things that they do. So overdoses for us in Warren County, overdose deaths. This data comes from the Warren County Coroner's Office. We did see a decline, thankfully, in our drug-related overdose deaths. In 2022, we had 43 deaths, far too many. We'd love to see 0 one year. That's our target. But the year prior, we had 75, so made some progress there. Our funding, you've heard me here for probably the last 7 years at least, and you know that we operate thanks to grants, thanks to community contributions, thanks to a financial contribution from our county commissioners in Warren County. And I'm here to say thank you for the continued support and partnership that we have with this city and all that you've done for us over the years. So hope you'll let me come back. I never have good news, but we're out there doing what we do every year. We're doing the best we can to stay around from year to year. Thank you for what you do to help us.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Just interested in how about if it's in here, I may have missed it. Just do you have cash seizures and asset forfeiture, and does that come back to you?
We do. That does help. Asset forfeiture has changed a lot over the years. It's not near as aggressive as it used to be, but and a lot of our cases are longer term, so we do, those bigger cases can produce larger forfeitures, but what happens with larger cases is you have more law enforcement participation. So basically it kind of gets distributed out. If it's a federal case, the U.S. Attorney's Office will take 20% of that for their cost of doing business, and then it gets divided up from there. State forfeiture just depends what county you're in. Every prosecutor takes a percentage, 20 to 30% typically off the top, and then that those funds get distributed out. So it's still there. It's not what it once was, but we do. Those funds do help us. They can help with detectives overtime. They can help with equipment. They can help with training. Seized vehicles can help us with undercover fleet, things like that. So it's still around, but it's changed a lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Major. We appreciate you being here.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
for
you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Executive Officer Bruce Hawk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm here. You have a couple documents in front of you. I'm just going to summarize those and kind of go over what those mean and what they mean to our organization. The Loveland Sims Fire Department is committed to continuous improvement. And one of the ways that we achieve this is through an accreditation process from the Center for Public Safety Excellence and the Commission on Fire Accreditation International. And as part of that process, we've completed a couple documents that you have in front of you that focus on continuous improvement. So the first one that I'll go over is the 5-year strategic plan. Real quick on how we collected all that. We collected information from our customers and from external stakeholders. Then internally, we conducted a SWOC, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. And from there, we developed our goals and objectives that we look at for the next 5 years to move the agency forward. And then the larger document that you have, that's our standards of response coverage and risk analysis. So the large part in that, there's a lot of graphs. It's our community risk assessment that we do, where internally we look at every area of our response district, and we conduct an in-depth community risk assessment. That assessment looks at the probability of responses that we've done historically, also the consequence to the community and the impact that it would have on our agency and the resources. So we put all that together and we come up with a risk analysis for various types of calls for every type of area that we have. And from that we develop, which is the front part of it there, we develop standards of response coverage for types of incidents, and it's described in that document there. So we do all of that to try to meet our effective response force, and all of that is based on meeting our effective response force, which is making sure that for any type of call we get the appropriate amount of personnel, the appropriate equipment on scene in a timely manner to mitigate whatever kind of incident that we're requested to respond to. So that is our goal with those documents. We're continually looking at them and trying to improve. I'm happy to report that we are in our 5-year reaccreditation cycle through those commissions, and we've uploaded all of our documents for them. We're scheduled to do our on-site visit where the peer assessment team will come on the week of March 26th. They're going to come and validate everything that we have in our documents. So we're moving right along with that process. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions? I think we probably need to read these first.
Yes, there's quite a bit in there, yes.
Then we might have some questions.
Yes. And those documents are also available on our website as well. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next is open forum. David Miller.
Good evening. My name is David Miller, 243 Wall Street. I wanted to correct something that Brady mentioned when he was up here speaking about Tigers Inc. He said the Loveland Magazine Foundation. There is no such thing. It was flattering to hear and I'm wishful, but I think he's probably meant to say the Loveland Legacy Foundation. I'm not sure if that's correct either, but give them credit rather than Loveland Magazine. And he scooted out before I could say anything to him. I'm here to talk about the Simpson Farm and the preservation of the Simpson Farm. The 40-acre farm was preserved after taxpayers bought it by putting an ordinance on the ballot that listed that was a covenant that eventually got recorded on the deed to the property. So the covenant now is the law. And if you go down to the recorder's office, you'll see it's there. Or you can Google the whole thing and you'll find out that it's recorded on the deed. So it's a legal document and something the city should be following. And there's A through G of things that are allowed or not allowed on the trail. And G, it concludes with each and every other activity or construction which might endanger the natural or scenic state of the property is forbidden. So the covenant was written, people voted overwhelmingly on it, that it stay in its natural state. I made a public records request recently and have been going through it, so some of the highlights that I've gotten out of it. It's hard to read emails and minutes of meetings and stuff and understand exactly what's being said, but as I understand, there's 5 miles of trails proposed for the Simpson farm. Some of that may be on the Phillips Park property on the Fallis Road side. That's why I'm a little unclear about that. But if it's on the Simpson farm, 5 miles of trails where there's not supposed to be any improved trails, it's really, I don't have the word for it. There's a new plan in place, and I don't know how soon this is going to happen, where a company is either being hired or volunteering to do this, but they talk about how they're going to build these trails, and they talk about rake in and bench cut trails. I think that means some excavating on the trails that aren't supposed to be there. And they're going to use creek rock on the trails. So they're going to go into the creek, take the creek rock out and put it on the trails. That's prohibited. And it doesn't keep the area in the natural or scenic state that it's supposed to be. And they call this person our trail creator. Well, there's not supposed to be any trails being created on the Simpson farm. When the covenant was written, it was always envisioned that people would walk there and be on there, and they were encouraged to do things like, have fun, learn about nature, scientific study, and so forth. But the vision was that if they were on any trails, it would be deer trails that come and go. But there wouldn't be any trails that would tell people where to go and where they have to go or should go. It was for exploration and have fun to learn about nature on your own. And now part of this plan includes signs being constructed on the property, a camping area that includes a grill, a table, a fire pit, a trail camera, and a picnic bench. There's not supposed to be anything like that on this property. People are supposed to be able to go in and see it in its natural state. And one of the somewhat interesting things and here's some mulch is being put down now. I'm going to email you some of this stuff so you'll be able to see it, but this is about a 12-foot wide swath of mulch that was recently put on the trail. Remember, unimproved trails. We don't need mulch on it and guide people or keep people's boots from getting muddy or dirty. And then
I'll give you about 20 seconds, Mr. Miller.
okay, this is an email that was from Doug Gilbert. He's on the Tree and Environment Committee, and in his discussion in this email, and I'll email this to you, send it back to you. He's talking about the removal of honeysuckle on the property. He says to the city manager,
Mr. Miller, your time is up. Thank you.
okay, I hope you pay attention to this when I send it. There's a conflict of interest going on. I hope the city solicitor understands it.
Thank you,
Maybe
Mr.
you've
Miller.
already
Your time
seen
is
it,
up.
but I'm going to send that where Doug Gilbert is saying that his company should be hired to do this work, and he's on one of the city committees. Thank you. Appreciate your additional tolerance.
Thank you. Sherry Fenning.
So,
Thank you for the time. I just came to say thank you to City Council, to the police and fire support for the Hearts of Fire weekend. It's appreciated by the entire city, and I think we should show up to say thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. And I think I brought some flowers for Misty because I can tell you for every flower you see here, Misty had to listen to one of our crazy ideas and say, that's really a great idea, but let's go another direction. So I also brought some for Krista and Becky, of course. But more than anything, just wanted to take this thank you for the time and just wanted to say thank you for keeping our city a great, fun place to be. So,
Well, yeah. Anyway. So we all want to thank Misty. This was sort of I don't even.
This
Oh, I will.
This was her idea.
I'm
this
getting
whole
there.
event was Sherry's.
I'm getting there. But you are somebody that needs a quarterback, and you're the quarterback on behalf of the city. So thank you for all of that. I'm going to read, because Misty gave me the list. It seems like a good time to do it, of all the people that were involved in this. But certainly a huge thank you to Sherry and to Nancy Duff, who seemed to be the face of it and really certainly had a lot to do with this weekend. I have heard nothing but positive comments. Mr. Braun said he heard it on one of the radio stations, and it's all over social media. There's been nothing but positive comments. You really put our city in a good light and gave something for everybody. It was just a wonderful weekend. I thought it was fantastic. So it's a little ironic that you're here thanking us, because we need to thank you for everything that you've done. But yes, Misty as well. But I want to read the list that Misty gave. So the Hearts of Fire Planning Committee is Nancy Duff, Sherry Fenning, Patty Pedicini, Vicky Larcombe, Christina and Adam Jaranek, Aaron Harper, Nicole and Ben Capadagli, okay. Cassie Mattia, Krista Rose, Becky Knoll, and Misty Clark. The last three, of course, are also employees of the city, and other employees who worked the event. Mr. Kennedy, Corey Wright, Mandy Lucas, who was our frog, did a fantastic job. Sean Tringaloff, Public Works. We had Lieutenant Amy Campbell, who provided wonderful security for Elvis when Elvis was here. Officer Vicki Johnson, Officer Jake Steinkoenig, and Officer Jenna Fisher. Also, members of the Loveland Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, Fran, Tom, and Melba, who handled the traffic at the crossing. And also there were several members of our LSFD that were here helping with the event. So could not have done it without all of those people and with all of the businesses that participated. I just don't know how it could have been any better. So thank you so much for doing it. And my guess is you're already coming up with new ideas for next year. Maybe. So thank you very much. And thank you for being here to thank Misty. We should always be thanking Misty. And you're welcome to stay, Sherry, but you don't have to stay. Do whatever you want. All right. Next, we have review and approval of minutes from the January 24th, 2023 meeting. Are there any changes, additions to those minutes? Can we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman,
I'm going to abstain due to absence.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, we have a second reading of an ordinance. Go ahead and read the ordinance.
Ordinance establishing the compensation and classification for the position of Assistant Public Works Director. Repealing Ordinance 2023-01.
All right. I don't think we have to have it explained again. We all know what it was from last time. Does anybody have any comments on that ordinance? All right. Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Ordinance 16 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy? Oh, it is Corey. My bad. Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. First item this evening, we have a request to approve a resolution to award basically what we're calling the Nisbet Park gazebo connectivity project to Finer Lawn and Landscaping, authorizing an expenditure of $38,000 in furtherance of this. So just step back in time a little bit. Last year, just after I arrived, the city authorized the purchase of the new gazebo at Nisbet Park. Mr. Kennedy had secured a grant for that through NatureWorks, and we have been diligently working to secure the various contractual elements of that project. And as council can see, we actually have concrete out of the ground now, and the first phase is there, and it really looks spectacular. And you can kind of see how it's going to set that for that corner of the park. And so with that, as we were implementing the first NatureWorks grant, we went back. Mr. Kennedy applied for a second grant for the what we're calling the Trail Connectivity Project, and that was awarded as well. And so we now have an opportunity to pursue this work, and the NatureWorks funding was awarded, and I have it in the memorandum, approximately $28,000, $28,422 in grant funding. So with that, we have a 75-25 local match. And so we basically have to spend the full amount of the grant. We have to spend an additional 25%. So we have $37,896 allocated in the 2023 annual operating budget for this. We actually looked at opportunities because of cost, procurement costs, and all of that. Because your materials costs, if we award this year, are going to be relatively constant with the gazebo cost. And we were able then to secure a very competitive proposal from Finer Lawn to complete the additional phases of that, which will basically extend from the gazebo site all the way to Nisbet restroom, and would also frame in the seating area, the eventual seating areas, which were part of the Nisbet Park master plan. And so given that, we were able to achieve some mobilization cost savings because contractor, he's actually still, he may or may not still have the concrete blankets there right now, but, equipment's there. He's familiar with the site. And then the other part of that too is, the quality of work will be commensurate with that. And I think with what's already been installed, and I think that's very important given the prominence of this project in the park and how it is basically our front door to the bike trail and for the city there. So, and for the patrons there. So with that, we would ask that council award the proposal to Finer Lawn Landscaping through the adoption of the proposed legislation, authorizing an expenditure of up to $38,000 pursuant to the proposal.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Just a couple questions. On page 16 of the packet,
Yes, sir.
the outdoor seating, I presume those are like tables, picnic tables and benches?
See, yes, they're just a conceptual layout of picnic tables. When we did the Nisbet Park Master Plan, they had originally talked about some mobile furniture, but the stuff that we have here in front of City Hall is much more secure and very nice, and it's been very well received. So most likely, as the seating areas are advanced, they will be installed in a manner that you can procure the additional fixed mount seating areas that would not be subject to walking off the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's a rough layout, just kind of a concept of that.
Okay, but you're going to put them down over gravel? Is that what it's?
Actually, we've been reviewing what options we have for that area, and originally they had spec'd decomposed granite. However, in talking with the landscape contractor and talking with Public Works and kind of looking at that from a maintenance perspective, I think that'll be a continuing maintenance issue. And given the prominence of that, we may look at a different surface, maybe a paver or concrete or stamped concrete. We don't know yet.
Okay.
But the sidewalks will essentially frame in those
Mm-hmm.
seating areas. So
Okay.
that'll be that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
And this is just the landscaping portion. This isn't walkways.
Well, actually, it'll include walkway and landscape and additional landscaping. So this will basically finish off the landscaping around the gazebo, because as we were looking at this, we had the money to allocate, and we really need to finish the gazebo project because they're going to be installing it, I think, they may actually arrive with pieces this week. So they're going to stage and start that setup as that concrete's curing and start that install. And then that will give the contractor, we'll basically have the gazebo contractor working in concert with, if this proposal is advanced, Finer Lawn, which can then do the grading and do all the tie-in work with the sidewalk. I would envision the sidewalk would happen next. And so basically, if you look at the drawings and the exhibits that were provided, the yellow area would basically tie into what's around the steps there on the gazebo, and the back pad has been poured, and that ADA ramp, and then that transition down has been poured as part of that. So it'll basically extend from kind of that terminus around and sort of loop around and then over to the restroom with a couple of connection points into the trail. And then you'll have also those green areas, and you'll have to forgive me for my penmanship on that, but that was the best way to exhibit or to demonstrate that. And then the landscaping plan has already been designed for around the gazebo, and that will be installed as well as part of this. So
all of the yellow is part of this.
all of the yellow,
Okay.
and then also the blue areas, and then the green in the top drawing on page 15, and then it's also highlighted in more detail with the blue outlines on page 15. That's the actual landscaping plan that will be installed. Okay. So.
Yes, Mr. Ori.
Two comments. Corey, in Finer's estimate here, he doesn't specify the concrete PSI. So I called Cindy and talked to her today, or text her back and forth. I know the city uses 4,500 PSI so I'm just assuming that it would still be the same.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked to him about the gazebo, I think that, it's a minimum spec of 35, and I think he actually poured a 4,500 mix.
Okay.
And that's generally what he pours.
And then the other comment was there's two, I guess. He says either saw cut them or tool edges on the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
The tool just looks so much better.
I totally agree with you.
So, I would suggest that. And then one question, the stone border, what are they using there?
So they'll basically use that. So when they built the gazebo, they had to raise that up, and they had footers that were very significant out of the ground because the grade did this, and so they put the footers in, and then they backfill that, and they have gravel, and then the slab, and the slab's actually integrated with the footers and tied in with rebar. It's a pretty significant structure, and then they backfilled around that, and so those walls will frame those stone borders will essentially frame those planting areas as you see them in that exhibit there. To sort of hold that dirt in, because there's a little bit of taper as you go down, and they have to sort of step that up a little bit. You can't just mound it; we'll have some erosion issues.
Are we talking fieldstone or something like that?
Yeah, it'd be something very attractive, like a fieldstone. I forget the name of the mix. We actually looked at it with him. Mr. Kennedy, I don't remember. It was like a Scioto mix or something. It was a very nice brown. And
for what it's worth, we've been using KZF design throughout the process to make sure everything's right. We pay them to continue staking it. Corey works with them. The design, the width, everything related comes right from the people that actually put the Nisbet Park plan together.
Yes. Okay.
So, but the elevation, if you look at the gazebo, and Corey worked that ADA ramp is right in line with that 18 inches of that height that we wanted to get for that.
About a 1.5, 2, code slope to get the water to drain away from that and to be compliant with ADA. And so with that, if you look at the ramp, and then, they backfilled it significantly to hold the stone and all that in. But if you can kind of think with the landscaping, you'll have that stone border that sort of goes around that. It would probably be close to flush at the trail, but you'll see more of a reveal as it goes back toward the stairs on the gazebo, because they'll want to taper that off and taper that down.
Okay.
And then probably a return into that, and then similarly on the other side for that. And then just depending on how the grade works with the walk and the seating areas and with the trail and how it all lays out, then that stone border is actually called to continue as those seating areas are installed down the road as we phase those in. So that'll all have a unified appearance to that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Hart?
The like a future landscaping plans. I'm looking at the on 12 there, where the seating areas are going to be in between those yellow outline
Yes.
areas.
Yes.
There's current trees in there.
We got to work around them.
We will work around the trees.
We got to work around them. Yep.
So the plan is not to have trees removed through there.
No, those are some pretty massive trees, and in fact, if you look at the layout, they're going to have to sort of thread the needle there on that one trail connection between. If you look over there by Nisbet, there's we call them witness trees, is what Mr. Kennedy calls them. So they're very large diameter trees, and so that'll have to thread the needle there, and then we'll work around the other trees with the seating area. Be respectful of that for sure.
That's why the surface that they end up deciding is so critical, so it has some flexibility.
Mhm.
But
that makes sense.
I mean, that I think when you're done with Corey, what you're going to see is that the seating areas are going to be outlined. We think we have another funding source to come in. The thing about those seating areas, we don't want to do it halfway, and to do it right, mirroring what we did up front, but on a much, much larger scale, it's extremely expensive because we really like those affixed tables because, quite frankly, when the guys are mowing, they don't want stuff. That really works, and those are very high quality tables. So Corey and I are talking. We want to continue that look over there. So we don't have the funding for that yet, and we would rather not just do one aspect of one of them. So we think we might have identified another source.
Cool.
Anyone else? Vice Mayor?
Just further on in the agenda, we're going to talk about the Nisbet Park Trail extension. Will these at all connect to that?
Yes, they will actually, and I don't want to steal Mr. Kennedy's thunder on that, but
they'll all ultimately all connect in one big walking trail throughout the entire park. But Corey will tell you, and we'll talk about this in a minute, we're limited until the Harrison Street stormwater project's done. We're limited to where we can go. And now that's why I made such a big deal about that Harrison Street project being widened, because not only will it make that a much safer area, but now we can move forward with Nisbet Park, because this massive Godzilla thing that's going to go through the middle of Nisbet to replace all the storm drain pipes, certainly you couldn't do anything on the western side of Nisbet until that was completed.
So that ties in basically, if you're looking at page 15 of the packet, that project that will come later ties in at the, we'll say the left corner there, more or less, where the stairs come down. And then it'll kind of go off toward the Nature Conservancy and wind down toward the, I call it the butterfly garage. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Bateman?
Just assuming, I mean, if you could verify that the proposed landscaping is set up as a one-time infrastructure bill, but I assume it's going to be maintained by our Public Works Department. There's no issue with that, correct? No need to go back to Finer Lawn for some sort of special preventative maintenance treatment or anything like that.
No. I aside from maybe a fertilization program that we do, and I think our folks are perfectly capable of that. We obviously we just installed. I apologize. I'm looking at you on the computer screen, but if with the bike trail landscaping and all that, we have that landscaping and that maintenance program. I think as we continue to beautify these spaces, we're going to have a pretty robust continuing maintenance program. And I think, council adopted the ordinance for the assistant public works director this evening. And I think that's going to be, buildings and grounds is going to be one of those components. So I really think that that's something that we're going to build and grow and kind of grow into and improve upon that. So that's the goal.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Finer Lawn and Landscaping for the installation of additional sidewalk and landscaping adjacent to the Nesbitt Park gazebo project.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Resolution 17 is adopted by a vote of 7 to 0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. Next resolution is a resolution proposing to award a bid for the Carl Brown pedestrian crossing project to Atleta Construction as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the amount of $112,008.66. And then also authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract between Atleta and the city. I would note that in the resolution, we do call out a reduced contract price of $91,231.86, and I'll get into that briefly. So in September of 2022, the city adopted the Downtown Streetscape Master Plan, which advanced various concepts from the Downtown Strategic Development Plan. So really that was the culmination of 4 years of planning and envisioning efforts to guide the city in the downtown's present and future configuration. So with that, the focus group determined that there was place-making efforts that were required to activate the Little Miami Scenic Trail and the engagement with the city on kind of the south side of West Loveland Avenue, and called for revitalization and reinvestment in the Carl Brown Way corridor. The plan actually specifically called out a mid-block crossing on Carl Brown Way to facilitate pedestrian activity and link parking circulation in the trail to emerging businesses in that area. And so with that, it actually called for, at the time it was Magnolia's. Magnolia's is no longer there. That was at around 115 Carl Brown Way. That is now Tahona and the Landing Event Center, both very successful destinations in their own right. And so this year, in the summer of this year, one of the elements of the streetscape plan, the sidewalk in front of what is now Tahona, was completed with the new streetscaping, the brick ribbon, the soldier course, and all of that. So it looks great in that, and it kind of activates that and provides that pedestrian element in that area. But if you look at the recommendations of the Downtown Strategic Plan and the Streetscape Master Plan, the city continued to explore that and to look at that pedestrian connection because of the parking circulation and the growing popularity of that area, especially with new businesses locating in the Brown area, Brown building, and the continued business growth at Tahona and the Landing Event Center, as well as Bond Furniture and Cappy's. And so those are very popular destinations. There's a large pedestrian movement there, and so the City Commission Choice 1 to review this opportunity, and they actually conducted a pedestrian analysis in June of 2022. Basically, what they did is on a Saturday they went from 10 to 7 p.m. They did count just in that one study window. They counted 512 pedestrians at an unmarked crossing, and so they looked at for us opportunities of where is the best fit, as I'll call it, for that cross block connection. And so they looked at it and they identified basically, if you can imagine a diagonal running south to north from the southern corner of the Brown building north to what is the Bond Furniture Gallery as the best fit location. Why is that the best fit location? Well, if you move it too far south, you have influence from northbound traffic coming around the S curve underneath the trestle. So that traffic has a sight distance issue. There's a significant cross slope on the sidewalk apron on the back of the Brown building because of the existing grade and the modification to the parking lot that was made there. And so in order to place that maybe further to the south, you would have to get into some significant grading and retaining walls if you went to the southern end of that property, which would impact parking, which we know is a precious commodity. In that, we looked at the center of the two where the stalls are, and Choice 1 looked at that and said, well, you've got two driveways coming in, and so you've now increased or multiplied the opportunity for pedestrian vehicle conflict in that area. And so they said, through their engineering analysis, the best fit location was at the northern entrance, just north of the northern entrance, which really reduces your vehicle and pedestrian conflicts, provides adequate sight distance for that, and provides a safe connection. So looking at understanding the best fit of that, there was detailed engineering analysis that went into that. And so when they looked at that, they said, okay, well, we need to provide pedestrian islands to allow people to step out into traffic because of the on-street parking. So the design includes pedestrian island bump outs so that the people can get out into that and be safe in those refuge islands, and also maintain ADA compliance with the striping. We actually are implementing the ladder striping, which is that's a standard crosswalk style that'll have the bars up the side and across, and the piano keys across the middle. The pedestrian island will jut out a little bit. It provides two benefits. A, it gives the pedestrians clear line of sight around larger vehicles that might be parked adjacent to the curb, and also provides a traffic calming measure for that area. The city had a preliminary engineering estimate that was prepared and included in the 2023 capital improvement program approved operating budget, $88,280, which was based upon the Choice 1 engineering analysis. So once the budget was approved, the project was included in the capital improvement plan. The city engaged Choice 1 to finish the design of that, and they did that. We advertised it pursuant to state law and our requirements, and we had two bids, Adlita and Ford. Adlita came in lower by about $14. And so that is the lowest responsive and responsible bid. Both bidders provided all the necessary documentation, but unfortunately, while both bids were within the 10% allotment or allowance, they were over the budgeted amount by more than $23,000. So we went back and said, can we reduce the scope? So we went and reduced the scope of that. We deleted a little over 5 sidewalk segments, which helps reduce the cost because the design is a considerable expense to frame that and implement that. And we're able to get the total quantities down to $91,231.86, which brings the project basically in line with inflation and everything else with our budget. So with that, we went to Adlita and asked them if they would honor the quantities based upon that, and they indicated that they would be amenable to that. Also, consistent with the city's agreement to seek reimbursement or cost sharing with the sidewalk, we will seek 50% reimbursement from the side where the most sidewalk is being installed. That would be the Brown building side. The other side, there's literally just a segment and a half, maybe 2 segments, and that's being modified just because of the need to accommodate the pedestrian ramps and the ADA ramps and the I forget what they call them. It's like the tactile. You see them. They're the bumps that you see. So that's that.
Truncated dome.
The truncated dome. There you go. Perfect. So with that will offset the cost because the cost per square foot for that decorative walk is about $45, $46 per square foot. That offsets about $7,200 of cost. So that brings it well in line with the budgeted amount from the city's capital improvement program. So with that, we do plan to install, in lieu of traditional pedestrian signage, we will seek an outside vendor to provide the RRFBs, which are the flashing beacons. And, like we have on Love Madera, and that have been very successful. I've seen those in other communities as well. Those will be, pole mounted. And the reason for that is that they last longer. The stuff in the pavement's a maintenance nightmare. Anyway, I think that'll be a nice add-on to the project. So with that, there's several options. Council can award the bid as presented with the reduced contract price. You can direct us to reject the bids. You can direct us to award the full contract as originally let. But I would note that the fiscal impact is gross, $91,231.86, but obviously there'll be about a $7,200 offset, so it'll be about $84,000 to the city upon completion. And I would respectfully request that you adopt the proposed legislation.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Ori?
Mr. Wright, looks like at the back or the south side of the Brown building, we're going to lose 1 parking spot there.
Really, it's about you're going to lose 2 parking spots because the way that it's striped. But there is ample parking area there, and we have made some other provisions for short term and other parking there. And I believe that part of that too will, there are ample paid spaces supporting that use in the back. So I think that we'll be okay on that side of West Loveland.
But
So,
the north side of that,
north
St.
side,
Clement Street, there's an extra spot, almost a spot, so maybe reconfigure those.
yeah, there's some striping there now.
Yeah.
There's like a kind of an old apron there's really no definition or delineation between pavement and sidewalk in that area. So that'll get cleaned up with this. And so, it gives us an opportunity to measure. Also, the other part too is it gives us the opportunity to measure those spaces and make sure that we're maximizing those spaces through that corridor. So,
Yes, Mr. Hart.
I've a couple things to kind of comment on. One, the first thing I would comment on is that when the engineering process was going on, they came up with best fit based on, would you say it was based on like the cost requirements of going and creating and making ADA accessible further south, or the restrictions that keep it from going further south than it was? Because in the strategic plan it says the mid-block crosswalk should be at Magnolia's, which is Tohono now, and it's pushed about half a block almost further north than that. And I understand why that would be done, but would you say it was more of a cost slash restrictions problem?
It's kind of a combination of that. I don't mean to hedge on that, but I think it's really both. It's, if you move it further south, there's a significant expense, not only to modify the cross slope on that apron, but then also to grade back into that. Mm-hmm. You get into, having to go back further into private property outside the right of way. You get into modifying existing walk that was just put in. But then you also, from a safety perspective, you have the S-curve under the trestle, which the further south you go with that traffic, you're reducing the sight distance for the motorist to actually see and engage the pedestrian with that beacon and all that. So the closer we put it to that conflict point, mm-hmm. the less visibility it has. And then the other part of that too is with the two driveways, if you can eliminate those vehicle conflicts with multiple driveways and people crossing, that really is a safety issue. So I think really it's a combination of everything. So
I see restrictions. I understand why it got pushed north. My concern is that just around this, my concern is that people coming from Linda Cox might not make it all the way over to that crosswalk and will still continue to just cross kind of wherever they want through there and not use that crosswalk in terms, if I'm coming from Linda Cox and I'm walking down the bike trail, which I think a lot of people do, and not take the gravel path. I don't see myself walking all the way up to the Brown Building, crossing diagonally north, and then walking back to Rhodey or Tohono.
No, I absolutely. I think that there can be a number of countermeasures. One of the things that we could look at, and again, part of the plan was to sort of continue to increase that connectivity between the trail and Carl Brown, and so maybe there's a better linkage that's provided there in some respect. Maybe it's a combination of private and public improvements. I don't know, but to sort of guide and direct that traffic more safely. Maybe there's some signage. Not that we need more signage, but maybe some small wayfinding signage that could help with that. But I think there's a number of opportunities that we could explore to really drive that traffic. That said, you're never going to completely out-engineer human behavior. So that doesn't mean that we won't have the odd stray crossing here and there. But I think that as the crossing is built and it's defined and it has, some landscaping and it's really becoming a destination for that, hopefully that will drive people to make more common sense and safe choices as opposed to just strolling across traffic.
Gotcha. The second thing I was going to bring up is the 112 includes the sidewalk improvements with the new design we have downtown,
mm-hmm.
and the 91 does not.
No, it still will. What we did was, if you look at there's a exhibit in the memo there. There's you look at figure 2. It showed the original. There were actually 4 segments of walk on the west side of Carl Brown. And then there were 1, 2, 3, like 6 or 7 on the east side.
Right.
So we actually scaled that back. So we reduced a total of 5 segments, really reduced it on the west side significantly to just get it down to where we could get the pedestrian, island and all that and the tie-in. But it'll still have on the other side, you'll basically go to where there's a small bump out in the Brown building, and we'll go all the way to the end of that curtain wall or that bump out so that the walkway doesn't end in the middle of that doorway. So you'll have some brick ribbon and some design, and you'll see that with the new. It just won't go as far.
And we would want to continue that at some point, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this becomes 2 projects at some point to get those sidewalks back.
Well,
we want to be eventually.
Yeah. So what it would be is that so you'd have this project, you have the bump out, and then you would basically pour that portion of the new walk and the ribbon to a point, basically a logical termination point, which is in the revised drawing, and then there would be a butt joint there for when we advance the streetscape project in the future, that you'd be able to it'd be a clean point to just pick that up and then continue that down or up north Carl Brown on both sides. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Mr. Blair?
Thank you, Mayor. While not wishing to pick nits, $112,000 or $88,000 seems like a hell of a lot of dough for a crosswalk. Has there been any thought to just paint the crosswalk and see what happens?
Well, so we talked about that. I mean, we could just paint the crosswalk, but then you don't have the truncated domes, you don't have the pedestrian refuge islands, which enhance the safety so people can see that. And I think that we would be remiss if we didn't provide those additional refuge islands for people to cross there. If our goal is to drive people to cross safely instead of an unmarked crossing, then we should make it, safe and design it such. But I think part of the cost with that is that there's some significant, really old, outdated stormwater, kind of some stormwater linkages in there that have to be moved and modified as part of this, and some tie-ins with that. But really, the cost, quite frankly, is in the kind of the pedestrian islands, and the largest cost is in the walkway. It's $46 a square foot for the ribbon walkway. So I mean, and there's some tear out and some demos, some mobilization in that too. But I think your 2 biggest cost influencers there, if you look at the bid specs, are going to be, kind of those hidden things below the surface that you don't see. Stormwater is always very expensive. If you look at the bid total, you can see, I mean, it's sort of the pavers, it's about 40,000 of that. You do get, there's a lot of storm in there. There's multiple line items for storms, catch basins, and that nature. So it'll be improved for that area, but it's it's stuff that we have to take care of and that we probably should take care of anyway if we're going to do it. But there is a considerable cost to that.
What is a $5,300 cost for maintaining traffic?
Well, we can't shut Carl Brown down, so they have to flag it. So they pay people to flag it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Pence.
Just a couple of questions. The location, and this goes to Mr. Hart's question, I guess, in part, but I understand the reasons for moving the location to where it is. But what I'm curious about is when Choice One saw these 500 people crossing during their study, did they document where they were crossing, or was it just somewhere along the road? And again, the point being, if we got 500 people crossing from the fireman's lot across to Tejano, again, are they going to walk another few hundred feet up to cross over and then walk the back down? And so from that standpoint, the last thing we want to do is make a crosswalk, and nobody still continues to use it. And so,
Comment was they crossed in the general vicinity of the proposed crossing. So what does that mean? Well, it's probably within 20 to 30 feet, plus or minus. Okay. And that makes sense, because if you look at where the crossing is going to dead end on the west side, that's sort of there's an old alleyway that's really not functioning anymore, that used to be between the old bond building and then kind of the annex, and all that. So it sort of makes sense that people are crossing there. They're either going to Cappy's, they're going to the event center, or they're going to Tahona. So, I mean, we're putting it, it's not a long stretch of roadway. I think if you were going to kind of pick the distance between the south and the north, it would be between the two access drives, which in talking to them, that's the worst point because you got people that are crossing, you got multiple vehicles going in, going out. And then we also get into significant cross slope grading and how much of that apron do you modify? So
another question on the beacons. Did I understand you correctly that the beacons are not included in
they
this?
had standard signage in this, so we'll have to procure those separately.
And has there been any direction, I guess, as far as beacons and that kind of thing, in proximity to the traffic light at Carl Brown and West Loveland? My question being, people are turning off of West Loveland onto Carl Brown and heading down towards the bridge, and then you got pedestrians constantly pushing a beacon button that's making traffic stop. Is there any concern about the proximity of where we're putting this crossing that's going to create another jam of traffic, in that they're not going to have the beacon lights timed with the traffic lights, and so this could be something where it's creating another choke point, if you will?
Well, I think anytime you add something to the street network like that, you could have a potential conflict. But to that point, that conflict's already occurring. But it's not signed. It's just people darting. It's people slowing down. It's people being courteous and letting people cross. I think that having it signed, it creates the expectation. Don't stomp on the accelerator. It's not a race to the trestle. And B, when you come around the trestle, it's not a race to the stoplight. I think that if you looked at that study window, which was 9 hours, they said that 142 of them, and this was a Saturday, it was in kind of that peak hour, was mid-afternoon to early evening. So I think the majority of the time, I don't think you'll have much issue there. I don't think it's going to be even close to what the trail crossing is. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Vice Mayor.
Just real quick, has there been any consultation with the business owners or operators as to the location?
We spoke to the owner of the Brown Building, I think, and Bond has seen us out there. It really doesn't impact their property per se. I believe the property owner of Tahona and the Landing is aware that we're looking at it. In fact, I think I mentioned something about a tree or whatever, and they informed me that it is actually a shade tree, which is good. It's not a flowering tree, so it will eventually complement the streetscape program, because that was something we were looking at with the downtown streetscape plan to make sure we were on cue with that or on point with that. So people are aware that this is coming. So,
okay, because I just would hate to have them say, why did you put it there, after we've done this? But I agree, this is most logical place, and we have adequate justification for that. But just hope we get buy-in on this.
And as we get closer to mobilization, we'll certainly do some outreach too and let them know that there'll be a little bit of disruption. Hopefully, we can get it done before peak season. So.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I don't think I've ever been on that stretch that someone isn't crossing the road there. It's scary, and I'm thankful no one's gotten injured yet. So I think we obviously would be remiss if we don't correct this issue once and for all. And I don't know, having crossed there hundreds of times, I certainly would not be. I can't imagine it'd be that difficult to get people to see, especially the way you're talking, that you just have to go a few feet to cross safely. Because that is a little frightening there with cars going both ways. So I think people will welcome this and use the crosswalk. Just my opinion. Go ahead and read the resolution, Misty.
Resolution awarding the bid to complete the Carl Brown pedestrian crossing project to Atleta Construction.
Any further comment on the resolution?
Quick question.
Dorian.
You mentioned before peak season. Is this something they can do right away?
Yeah, I mean, if we continue to get the weather that we have now, and I haven't reached out to Atleta as far as when they would mobilize, but I would imagine that we would ask them to mobilize quickly on this. So,
thank you.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
No.
Mr. Hart.
No.
Resolution 18 carries by a vote of 5 to 2.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you. Last time of business, I have a memo here from City Engineer Cindy Kloffenstein. This is about the East Loveland sewer, East Loveland improvement project in the sewer, the MSD component of that. So, if you recall, Council authorizes to join into a cooperative agreement with MSD and Claremont County. We have a cooperative agreement in the city to advance the East Loveland improvement project. As part of that, there's about 1,300 linear feet of sewer main that needs to be replaced, and so they have to design that. And the cooperative agreement includes a reimbursement provision of up to $40,000 for the sanitary sewer design work. The city has Burgess and Nyepel is who is doing the engineering for that project. They did provide a city with a proposal for $38,400 to complete the sanitary sewer engineering. So that means that the city will receive 100% reimbursement for that. And we would respectfully ask for a resolution allowing the city to engage with Burgess and Nyepel for that expenditure to continue to advance that project on the march toward, eventual construction later this year. So,
Any comment or questions? Read the resolution. Oh, Mr. Bateman.
Just letting you know I plan to abstain from this vote with my residence being on East Loveland.
Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Does the actual construction reflect the design on page 126 of the packet?
That's a different project.
Different.
That's the West Loveland. This Corey's talking about the sewer up on the East Loveland.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, anyone else? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional service agreement with Burgess and Nyepel Inc. for the completion of the sanitary sewer design and engineering services in accordance with the terms and conditions of the OPWC District 2 Cooperative Agreement executed between the City of Loveland, Ohio, and the Metropolitan Sewer District for the completion of the East Loveland Avenue Improvement Project.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Abstain.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Resolution 19 is adopted by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
2019, the city first started discussing with the Hamilton County engineers the process of replacing the sidewalks on the north side of West Loveland Bridge. 2020, city engineer Cindy Klopfenstein secured funding for the OPWC. 2021 was the first time it appeared in the CIP. It again appeared in 2022 due to delays. Also in 2022, we had to make temporary blacktop repairs, or the county would have been forced to shut down the sidewalks on the north side. So, the project has finally reached its the meat of the whole delay in this project was the conduit. The conduit runs the telecom, everything runs through the physical sidewalks. So that's why you can't repair those. So they had to be cut and basically laid underneath the bridge. That took an extensively long time, and it also increased the cost of the project. So faced with the potential that Hamilton County basically was saying, we're not putting any more into this project, Mayor Bailey was able to work with the Claremont County Commissioners, because this is a unique bridge in the sense that it is owned and maintained both by Hamilton County and Claremont County. $250,000 she was able to convince the commissioners to put towards this project, put us back online, and we're ready to go. Real quickly, the city's cost has pretty much remained the same because the grants weren't going to pay for the railing or the lighting. It's important to note that, and actually this was partially due to an accident on the bridge over the river by River Downs, and is that anytime a bridge is touched, the railings have to be increased. So what the city decided would be the best opportunity was to maintain that view, is to have the railings replaced with very ornamental type railings, which I put a picture in that. So the city's share, which is 67,067, is only primarily what we're paying for is the railing and the new lighting that will be on the bridge. So it will be, it's one of those where it's a shame no one would ever see what the alternative was, because the alternative was your view going over the bridge was going to be significantly deterred, because if you touch a bridge, it's no longer grandfathered in. So at this point, the total cost estimate for the project is $905,000. Claremont County's putting in $225,000. City's secured a grant for $277,598 on behalf of both parties. Hamilton County City will put in $67,067. Hamilton County engineers will put in $335,335. So we are ready to go. They just want to memorialize this somewhat because of the different parties. If you look at that agreement, it's really important. It's worth noting that the city's role is simply financial, which is good. We're not going to be a party to any construction supervision or any part of that project, which is good. It's still not our bridge. So at this point, this is simply a resolution authorizing me to execute agreement with a joint agreement with Hamilton County, Claremont County Engineers Office.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Hart?
I think there are a number of people that need to be commended for getting this project to where it is right now. This is a long time coming. I think this bridge has been an eyesore and unsafe at times, and I think that there are a lot of people that deserve credit for getting this thing to its spot right where it's at right now. This is a good thing.
Yes, Mr. Ori?
Mr. Kennedy, there's a $67,000 and some change expense, but there's also a $4,300 credit. Is that
because when Corey and I came up with this brilliant idea for a blacktop on the thing, each party agreed to, we decided we wanted a third. We didn't get all of our thirds, Corey, so we didn't get paid. So they're acknowledging that and giving us a little credit. When we realized that we were going to use our road contractor to put blacktop on it, Hamilton County and Claremont County and the city all agreed we'd each pay a third. We also reminded them that we didn't get paid our third from those parties that I will not call out. And so they're giving us a credit on that.
Okay.
And if you notice, if you tried to do the math and why is it a percentage of the local match, you need to note that the grant and the Claremont counties is considered as local match. That's the only time the math works.
Right.
Yes.
So the bridge will look like the pictures.
It'll look like that lighting and that railing. It will not have that stone. It'll have that railing.
Okay. And is this above the roadway?
It'll be, and that's part of your 905 is that there will be so imagine on the north side, all the sidewalks and the abutment that there's the railing all comes out. Then there is a small abutment that the railings will be placed upon. So that's a big part of your expense. We're not doing stone.
But you'll be able to see over easier than you will do now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is spectacular.
I want to point out that was the only picture I could find.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, there's not that stone veneer on there.
So if it's not our bridge, it's Claremont County and Hamilton County's bridge. They're responsible for the construction. They're responsible for a period of time pretty much ruining life trying to get downtown. How much of a whip hand do you have to make sure that they perform on a timely manner so that the agony that we will all face is mitigated?
I think I sick Corey on them.
Okay. Enough said. Thank you.
Okay.
And will there still be a step up from the street level so it won't encourage bikers to take the sidewalk? They'll have to stay on the road.
We're in no position. We looked at everything since 2019. There was no room, no avenue that the sidewalk could be widened. There was no avenue, nor did the Hamilton County have any appetite on removing the south side connection. We're switching the lanes and widening that. Their answer was, we're fixing your sidewalks. We're not redoing the whole bridge. So at the end of the day, that's why this bridge, sidewalks on the south side of the bridge are in great condition because there's no conduit. They were repaired prior to my time here, but relatively soon. It's this conduit is the reason why the north side sidewalks are just a complete mess. And let me tell you, Corey and I did not think that blacktop would hold up that long. So It's a bit of a surprise that you throw a blacktop on the sidewalk, but so we have no room to widen it. So,
Any other comments or questions? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a joint agreement between Hamilton County, Claremont County, and the city of Loveland for the construction and maintenance of improvements to the Loveland Road Bridge.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 20 is adopted by a vote of 7 to 0.
Mr. Kennedy.
so Corey teed this one up pretty well. So again, trying to continue the southwest run of what we need to call the Nisbet Park Walking Trail. And this would be a good time. We decided to go forward with that and go right up to the boundary limits of the Harrison Stormwater Project. So Claremont County Park, and they really need to be commended. There's very few communities that organizations, taxing agencies that pass a levy and then take a portion of that levy and give it back to communities within the county. With the Claremont County Community Parks Grant, we have been able to receive quite a bit of funding. Just recently, we did the AED in McCoy Park through this program. So when Corey and I sat down and tried to figure out what would be a good use of this, quite frankly, we're sort of done at McCoy in terms of, remember, we're held to McCoy and to Nisbet. No one, and with that, McCoy, as far as having something that's health, wellness, and safety, there really wasn't. So we, working with Lynn Zook, we came up with a cost estimate, knowing our limitations with the amount of funding that they have in Claremont County. And it was a perfect mix. It will actually, for that amount, will take us right up to that edge. Same exact specs that Corey mentioned before. Same thickness, same width, same PSI. But again, because we're using Lynn, it will have the slope. It will work its way up to the Harrison boundaries of the storm drain. And the reason why I think this is important is because when all of the plans that the city, if everyone remembers, in a relatively short period of time, the city of Loveland completed 4 master plans: streetscape, comprehensive, downtown, and Nisbet Park. And where some of them did gel, mid-block crossing, proposed in downtown plan sort of did gel with the comprehensive plan. But the plan of the streetscape plan was always that at some time in a future date, North Carl Brown will be sidewalked and an entryway into Nisbet Park on the south side of the park would be created. Theory being, going back to what Councilmember Phelps said, once everything's fixed, more and more people, while many people are coming over the bridge to go to various city businesses, many are also taking a left to get into the Nisbet. Nothing personal, it's not that attractive. And so this is where these two plans sort of mesh. So that's why Corey and I felt that this was a good segue to that plan. And then lastly, so total project cost, I got required 2 bids, is $9,775. We are not required to put in a local match, but I know that Chris Klingman with Park District is limited. So I'm recommending that we put in a 20% local match of $19.55. That would leave us with a grant request of $78.20. I gave you a modified legislation. One final note. The beauty of this project is if we're awarded, we'll know in April. We would be able to just continue. I would anticipate we'd be right back here relatively quickly with a proposal for you to do that. If we put in a 15% contingency, and the only reason we did that was there is in the master plan, there is a proposal for a circle at each joint. And if once we have it clearly defined where the boundaries of Harrison stormwater are, we think we still may be able to do that circle way, which will show everyone which way we're going. That's all I had.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Hart.
Dave, I feel bad making you talk right now. So I feel
terrible.
I apologize. Do you have any idea when the stormwater thing completion date on that is?
So all OPWC projects, and this is something the city is good at, once you're awarded, what most communities do and the city does is we do all our engineering and bid work now. you can't award a contract until July 1st. What aspect of that? I don't know. It's a great project. Ask question for Cindy. I'll ask her. So, Cindy, will we have a say on the order of work? That's a great question, because why wouldn't we want to just go ahead and create this whole massive cut through? That's a great question. I don't know the answer, so I'll ask Cindy. So,
cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we do have a red line version. Joe, do we need a motion to amend that resolution then?
Yes, we do.
Someone care to make a motion to amend the resolution as outlined in the red line version?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Call the roll, please. I'm sorry. Probably. Oh no. Go ahead. Do that.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. So I guess you need to read the resolution.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a 2023 Community Parks Improvement Grant application to the Claremont County Park District.
So now we will vote on the motion on the resolution as amended. Go ahead. Call the roll.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Resolution 21 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Medler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. After we close the books on the year, the city is required to submit a budget to the Hamilton County Budget Commission that demonstrates that our budget expenditures balance with our available resource. So this ordinance adjusts our budget through mostly contingency lines to do that. We did the same thing last year in February, and if you'll recall, in December, we had another adjustment to balance last year. It is a housekeeping item, and since we have a scout in attendance, I'll put it in scout terms. This helps us keep our budget clean, keeps us obedient with Ohio Revised Code, and it keeps us thrifty with city funds.
Very nice. Mr. Medler is on tonight.
yeah, working his time.
Anybody have any questions for our comedian? Yes, Mr. Blair.
Mr. Medler, can you tell me what the net is?
Sorry, the net change?
How much we're moving all in and where it's going? Or not where it's going. Don't do me that. We'll be here all night.
So decrease of 1,201,254.35.
1 million.
1,201,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, go ahead and this is just a first reading only. So go ahead and read the ordinance.
Ordinance to make revisions to appropriations for expenditures for the City of Loveland, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight I have a notice of final action and a request to set a public hearing for a proposed zoning text amendment that was recommended for adoption by the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is the mobile food vendors amendment, as I'll call it. So the little bit of background, and everybody's sort of heard this repeatedly. Mobile food vendors are regulated as a special exception. Currently, the Planning and Zoning Commission went through a number of work sessions, public involvement, surveys, the whole 9 yards to draft a new set of regulations that really do four things: regulate them administratively, establish clear, consistent rules regarding their general operations, provide special event and city-sponsored event exemptions, allow the placement of various zoning districts, and establish district-specific time, manner, and place restrictions. So with that, how did we get there? Well, multiple work sessions, couple of revisions to that, a final set of revisions, planning and zoning public hearing in February. We had a little bit of feedback, and I think that the business owners there are satisfied with the regulations and kind of some of the provisions that were struck in that. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted a motion to recommend approval unanimously at the February 7th meeting. So now what we've done is we've prepared a notice of final action for council. So that final action letter is attached. documenting the commission's recommendation. And before you, you have the proposed amendments, both in red line and what I'll call clean copy, print copy, for your review. With that, I would respectfully request that council set a public hearing because it is required for the zoning code, as per the requirements of Chapter 1115. City council is required to take action to schedule a public hearing to consider the proposed zoning text amendment upon receipt of the zoning commission's recommendation. And so I would recommend, in order to provide ample time for notices, to set the public hearing on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to allow council ample time to review the proposed amendment and to allow us to get the required publication out. So,
All right. Any comments, questions for Mr. Wright? Yes, Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wright, how would you characterize the input from the businesses?
the input from the businesses, which time, I would ask.
Overall.
So we had very good input. We had, as part of this process, we had some, there was an initial case that spurred some significant discussion. And then we had an open house basically last year. And the vast majority of businesses were supportive of the regulatory change to basically to go the way that we're going. And then on top of that, the survey results, we got more than 300 surveys results, which is very impressive for an online survey. I was actually impressed by the number of survey responses we got. So that was kind of our marching orders. It's like, wow, this is good. So
what was the outcome from the survey?
The outcome from the survey is that we want food trucks.
Okay.
And that we should allow them in more places, but you need to regulate them.
Okay.
And so sort of we had these recommendations that we want them more, but we want them closely regulated. You need to have standards and rules for all of that. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, we set about the work to do that and come up with some regulations. And so at the final public hearing before the recommendation from the commission, we had a couple of businesses come in. They were concerned about some of the grandfathering provisions and all that. And actually, when talking through that, the grandfathering provisions are actually pretty, there is no sunset on it. So as long as they continue, they can continue. But then there's also some other exceptions for what we would call outdoor kitchens, accessory kitchens, things like that are even more beneficial for those existing installations. And so that I won't say they were placated, they were satisfied with that response, and we're happy that they were thought of when we drafted those regulations.
Great. So I appreciate the attention you gave all that. Thank you.
Any further comment or questions? All right, we do need a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to establish a public hearing to occur on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to consider the proposed text amendment as recommended for adoption by the Planning and Zoning Commission and in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 1115, Section 1115.07b of the Planning and Zoning Code.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey? Yes. Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
Back in January of 2017, City Council, through legislation, set up a parameters upon where they could waive the special event fee for a downtown event, or actually any event. So we have had a request for a waiver of the $150 special event fee. Kerry Puckett and Doug Portman are putting on an event on March 18th, 2023 called the Leprechaun Chase. Proceeds will benefit local nonprofits. And what we try to do, I'll be waiving their park fees. Council waives their application fee. Simple theory, this allows more room for the funding to go towards the agency. So it's a simple motion where the city would approve the waiving of $150 special event application fee for the Leprechaun Chase, March 18th, 2023.
Any comments or questions? Someone care to make a motion to waive the $150 special event application fee?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
and Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So this is simply the action of the city manager giving to the mayor an application for the creation of a second community entertainment district. The city created its first community entertainment district in the area, roughly bounded on Loveland Madeira Road from West Loveland down to the Kroger. We've started to identify the possibility to entice some redevelopment of the area that borders Cottonwood to East Kemper to facilitate a community economic development application. The city, it's benefits for the city to be a property owner. That there we can submit the application. City annexed some vacant property that it owns just west of Walgreens. It's a non-developable hillside. It actually has a Hopewell. Once city council completed that annexation, that set the tone for the city to be able to do this application. The total area of this particular CED is 24 acres. CEDs, community entertainment districts, simply the benefit is the reason why we like them, and I know taxing agencies like them, school districts like them, because it doesn't impact any kind of taxes. It is simply a dollar and cents benefit to some prospective business. By the population of the city, we have long since issued more of the liquor license permitted by the city, probably long before I got here. There is an avenue where people can secure liquor licenses through what's called a TREX. It's an economic development tool. A TREX is right around $30,000 for you to TREX in a liquor license. By doing a community economic development district, the city will create for this one 4 liquor license D7s for $2,300, and it just sits there. It can be a very stagnant opportunity, but it is simply another tool in the city's toolbox. So at this point in time, all we're doing is I'm handing it to the mayor, the application. There's the corrected one in front of you, and that's tonight. Then within 30 days of receipt, the mayor shall submit the application with a recommendation to city council. And then within 30 days after receiving, city council shall publish a public notice for 2 consecutive weeks. And then within 75 days, if you remember when we did number 1, I dropped the ball somewhere between 3 and 4 and we had to start over. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen this time. So at this point, there's no action required from city council.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Clark?
This is the time of year when council begins the selection of the Business Enhancement Award and the Lewis G. Rockwood Community Service Volunteer Award. If it suits council, I propose that nominations be submitted to me before the February 28th meeting. Recipients can be selected at our March 14th meeting and awards presented at the March 28th meeting. The memo in the packet does include a list of all past recipients. And we ask that when you nominate someone, you also include a summary to support that nomination.
All right. Thank you. There are various committee minutes and reports. Anybody have any comments on those? All right. City council reports. We already talked about Hearts of Fire. We just mentioned that there was the Valentine's Day breakfast on Friday that council member Blair and I attended, along with Misty Clark and Dave Kennedy and Corey Wright from the city. It was a very nice event.
As always.
Yep. Does anybody else have anything they want to report? All right, then I believe we need a motion for executive session.
I'll move to move into executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1. Consider the compensation of a public employee.
There a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
So let us return.
Hey, Sam.
Relating what's going on the new community park that they're building over in Brown.
About that,
I think he's talking about West Lawn.
No, the park. He's talking to the system, but I'm not sure what that's.
Okay. Can't hear you guys.
There we go.
All right, can we have a motion to adjourn? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
He wants to be admitted.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Wait,
Yes.
Call him later.
Come back to Mr. Bateman. Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Mr. Bateman's here again.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.